Hello, gentlemen, and maybe supportive wives. Thank you for joining me today in this live class on how to treat an enlarged and inflamed prostate. My name is Khabir Southwick, Ayurvedic doctor and Ayurvedic herbalist, and practiced 27 years in providing Zoom appointments worldwide, and the founder of herbmanteas.com, where you can find any of the products I mentioned today, and is the sponsor of our talk. So, today we're going to cover first the causes of enlarged and inflamed prostate. And there are, two big categories of causes, one that makes it enlarged and two that makes it inflamed. And then we're going to talk about dietary changes that need to be made to reduce or eliminate those causes, because you can't just think of buying a bag of tea and thinking that it's going to be sufficient. And as you know, Urban Teas sells prostate tea, and we're going to cover some of those ingredients in a minute and how and why they work. And we're selling anywhere from 10 to 20 bags a day. And that so we know there's a lot of men out there who have prostate problems. And these people who are purchasing from me, they are often not my patients. Of course, some my patients will generally go through the office and place an order. So I know there's a lot of men out there with prostate issues because I see the volume of sales I have on the prostate tea that I have in particular. I have a formula and some other products too, and they sell well, but it's this tea that everybody buys. But my point is, this tea is insufficient as a treatment. First of all, you're going to learn that I use the Ayurvedic formulas more than the teas. And to me, the tea is more like supplemental, or, combining it together, as my teacher taught me, stacking, where you put two or three different products together. And I think one of the reasons for my success as an herbalist is because I'm a Western herbalist and an Indian herbalist. So I often give you a Western tea and an Indian formula. And this gives me this like double power, and it gives the clients faster results, because really it's the more herbs that you use, the better. And unfortunately, people try very simple things like buying supplemento capsules and taking it, and of no avail. And we're going to explain why a lot of these home remedies or simple herbal treatments that you're going to get off of YouTube, the place where the blind are leading the blind, everybody repeating the same old information, why these online treatments that you hear about are ineffective. And even though as powerful and effective as my prostate tea is, which we're going to talk about in a minute, it in itself is not a complete cure, because you have not identified the causes and removed the causes. When I do an appointment, I don't just start handing out herbal teas and wave my magic wand that it's going to get better. I have to focus on identifying why this person has an inflamed and or enlarged prostate. And of course, see the PSA numbers and other information, and get the signs and symptoms from the patient. And then I do more of a holistic treatment. And the first thing I have to do, though, is identify the causes and eliminate them. So we're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to talk about dietary requirements that have to be done to make this successful. And then, two, we'll talk about the herbal remedies, including my famous prostate tea. And we'll talk about some of those herbs individually and how they work. And we'll mention why some of these little simple cures we see online are often insufficient, because most of my patients have tried all of that before they've done an appointment with me. So back to the causes, the most important part of this class. Now, we got to break down this condition into two categories as per the title: enlarged and inflamed. So let's break those down. We could start with inflamed first. Okay, so if you have inflamed prostate, you have inflammation in the body. You may only be complaining about it or aware of it or concerned about it in your prostate, but every man with inflamed prostate has inflammation in the body, usually in more than one place. So often I'll have this type of man, and I'm asking him, "Do you have muscle pain?" They go, "Yeah, I have a little muscle pain, but it's all right. It doesn't bother me. I don't care about that. I don't want to treat it." So in their mind, they don't care about but it's all connected. You have inflammation. Sometimes inflammation can show up in mysterious ways. You can have dermatitis, inflammation of the skin. So if you have like red on your skin, or you get this red hives, or the doctor calls it dermatitis. There's many different types of dermatitis, more than even though I treat all skin conditions, there's so many types I've even heard of. um, it's an inflammatory skin condition. Even a lot of headaches can be inflammatory. Not all. I mean, there's tension headaches and migraine headaches and all, but some are just coming from inflammation. And there's other causes and there's many causes of inflammation. So we have to get now next, we have to go to the cause behind the cause. So we know inflammation is a major factor here, and then what are the causes? Now, of course, I have a whole nother webinar on this subject. You'll have to look for it, called The Causes of Inflammation, because this is a vast subject, but we'll cover it quickly here. If we look at the Ayurvedic explanation, which I think is correct, because by following this, I can reverse arthritis, muscle pain, joint pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation of the skin, dermatitis. I'm reversing all these conditions like forever. They're gone after removing the inflammation. So if you have inflammation in the prostate, then it has to be removed, and all the causes, everything you're doing to create the inflammation has to be stopped. And just to know if you have inflammation in the prostate, if you're not clear, you just keep looking at your PSA number, of course. PSA number, if that's really high, that means you're almost precancerous. I mean, you can have not a very high PSA number and still have inflammation of the prostate. Of course, that number is very high. It's even more dangerous, but it's not a great indicator of inflammation. I mean, you can there's some inflammatory markers, IgG, IgA, and other things we can look at the lab work to see, but these are still inconclusive. The easiest is just sit on your bicycle seat or sit on the arm of a chair, and if it hurts, it's usually inflamed. If you can't sit down because it hurts, that's inflamed. Yeah, that's it. And so the more it hurts, the more some, men, when it's hurting, I'll ask them, okay, how was it 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? And generally it wasn't bad 5 years ago. They could feel it, but 2 years ago, it was more pain. Now it's almost unbearable. They can't see. So, this is a little bit of problem with our gender, as I sit around and be tough guy and put things off till the very end. So most of the prostate cases I get are already quite bad, and the guy could hardly sit because he's put off treatment, or what they've done is, go online and, search and try to take a bunch of vitamins. This is not a nutritional problem. So you can ignore all the people on YouTube that tell you to take vitamins. It ain't going to hack it. Just taking some zinc, and more vitamin D isn't going to reverse your inflamed prostate. It will help, and go ahead, keep taking it, but that's not the treatment. So what are the causes? Well, I mean, the causes of inflamed prostate are the same causes of inflammation in the muscles, or fibromyalgia, or inflammation in the joints, are the same exact causes. It's inflammation. It's just in a different spot in your body. So here you go. Here's the big long list. Of course, you got to take out 100% the whole nightshades, tomatoes, eggplant, bell pepper. So we get a lot of people with Hispanic descent who, put tomato sauce on freaking everything. So they're more susceptible to all types of inflammation, not just prostate inflammation. And remember, we're still going to go back and talk about the other factor, enlarged prostate. We're just focusing on the inflammation first. So tomatoes for sure have to go. I had one guy recently text me, says, "Hey, can I have yellow tomatoes?" I said, "No, it's not the tomato. It's the whole family, this nightshade family." And of course, Ayurveda has been saying this in ancient texts. I have books, they've talked about this 800 years ago. But modern science, science is always a little slow to figure things out because they need to do their testing, and they have to have some proof or evidence. They don't really care that people have been talking about not taking tomatoes for their prostate or inflammatory condition for 1,000 years until it's proven. Science can't confirm it, and that science is not never follow the science. But by the time science confirms it, then you're okay. But if science can't figure it out, just ignore it. It doesn't mean anything. Just give them another 20 years and they'll figure it out. But my point is that now science has finally figured out why tomatoes are inflammatory. We're talking just in the last few years. And even some medical doctors, can you believe it? People who just studied medicine are actually telling their patients with arthritis, don't eat tomatoes or the nightshades. And even guys on YouTube, oh my God. My secret's out of the bag. Tomatoes are inflammatory. And of course, science had to finally figure out it was the lectins. They call it the lectins. Now, I never heard of this word 5 years ago. I was just telling people don't have tomatoes, particularly tomatoes, but the nightshades, the bell peppers, and paprika's in this category too. And white potatoes is in this category as well. We've got some people down in Louisiana, a lot of paprika, and they said, boy, I stopped that paprika and my joint pain went down. Of course, since most of my patients are now on Zoom, now that I don't meet clients in my clinics anymore, they have to wait 3 or 4 days for the herbs. So when they have inflammatory conditions, I tell them how to change their diet, which I'm going to tell you right now. We just started with the first thing, the nightshades. And they said, even by the time the herbs came up, by just stopping the tomatoes and some of these other dietary guidelines, they said already my inflammation pain went down 30-40%. And sometimes these are people who've had the inflammation and pain for 10 years. Nobody told them to stop the tomatoes. Well, now even the medical doctors and YouTubers telling you to do it. They say it's from the skin, which is what Ayurveda said too. It's in the skin and in the seeds, which I actually didn't know. So even I can learn from science. I don't generally follow science. I follow Ayurveda, ancient system, proven right for thousands of years, whether scientists can prove it or not. But that was interesting. It was in the seeds. I think it may be known. So now that you can get tomatoes, lectin-free tomato sauce. So now, I'm not 100% that would really work because sometimes science is very narrow-minded and they're just looking at one thing. There could be more qualities to a tomato just besides the lectins. And that's generally how the, modern Western or so healthcare system thinks. They try to narrow it down to one thing and then eliminate it. But it may or may not be effective just eliminating lectins. But anyway, get them out of your life, number one. Okay, point taken. And you can now Google this and it's backed up even online. So they got to go. What else is inflammatory? The next biggest one that I see with almost everybody, every man with prostate, is coffee. Coffee is very inflammatory. Green tea is not. It's not the uh, caffeine. It's not the problem. If you can't sleep at night and you're an insomniac, of course that's the cause. Your coffee. I haven't met a insomniac yet that isn't drinking coffee at least 1 cup a day. But don't let me go there. That's another subject. Insomniacs drinking coffee. But here we have coffee, very inflammatory. In fact, I just had a client recently who had IBS, irritable bowel inflammation of the colon, which sometimes a person with prostate can have no joint pain, but their colon is inflamed, another part of the body's inflamed. We've got the intestines inflamed and the prostate's inflamed, maybe even the rectum's inflamed. You have hemorrhoids. So the inflammation is just at a lower point. But the cause for this patient we determined was drinking black coffee every morning for 30 years on an empty stomach. He didn't want to put in the cream or the sugar. I guess he didn't want to be diabetic and put in the sugar. So that was good. At least he's not diabetic. But anyway, this black coffee in his every morning tore up his intestines. So we see a lot of this coffee creating inflammatory colon conditions. And it's just inflammatory in general. Coffee is not even a bean. They call it a bean, but it's really a fruit. But it's the seed. It's the seed of a fruit. And sometimes it's those seeds are the bad boys. But you can always change over to green tea. Green tea is anti-inflammatory. So you can still have your caffeine if it's important, but your coffee has to go. Let me keep going here. There's plenty of causes. Like I said, I've given whole webinars just on the subject of the causes of inflammation. The next big one is chocolate. I know it's been marketed really well. I mean, there's been some great promotion on chocolate. You have to hand it to them. I think in New York City, someone told me even an advertising company is using the chocolate marketing case as a sample because I think it was so brilliant how they talked people into buying chocolate and believing it was a health food. Amazing, but still, people have fallen for that line. It's not a superfood. That was just a non-trained individual. I won't say his name, who started promoting it as a superfood. Well, that's a fraud. It's inflammatory chocolate, even if you have cane sugar in it, which not everybody does. They usually throw sugar in it. So chocolate has to go, as good as it is. I mean, you can give it out on Valentine's Day. It is an aphrodisiac. And at least if you give your wife a box of chocolate at night, she's not going to sleep with all that sugar and aphrodisiac in it. So it does have its purpose, but not if you have inflammation in the body. No more chocolate. And well, the next big one, I mean, the big elephant in the room, which really everybody's known for decades, if not longer, that's inflammatory, is processed white sugar. Now, I didn't say cane sugar, raw sugar. It's that processed white sugar. And where is that where is that processed white sugar? It's in everything in your supermarket, unless you're trying to avoid it. And that is, it's in your salad dressing if you don't get a good salad dressing. Even the other day, I bought an organic salad dressing and I saw it had sugar in it. So you have to be really careful there. It was probably organic sugar. It's a little bit better. At least I won't get cancer from it. But you want to avoid the sugar. Of course, diabetes too. That's why everybody gets diabetes. It's sugar, not the fruit. The fruit isn't going to give you diabetes. And fruit isn't going to create the inflammation. But your cookies, your candy, your chocolate. So your coffee with sugar, you can see, particularly I don't know what you call it. I've never been to a Starbucks. I'll never go in one of these places in my life. Overpriced and harmful substance. It's like right there with a fast food for me. But I know there's a chocolate coffee drink out there, or something, cappuccino, something. But that couldn't be any more. I mean, you couldn't find anything more inflammatory. And I've had people who had inflammation, and they said, "Yeah, I have one every morning. This chocolate coffee with sugar." So there you got 3 inflammatory substances in your stomach on an empty stomach every morning. Oh, wow. Fantastic if you want to jack your inflammation up. Now, not to say you're going to drink this 1 cup of coffee and have some tomato sauce in your one time when you're 20 years old and get inflammation. No, you won't get it until you're much older. I mean, you got to keep doing the coffee and the tomato sauce for 10, 20 years and then maybe 30 years, and then you'll get it. But now you stop the coffee and the chocolate and the tomatoes, and the inflammation isn't going away either. So keep that in mind. Just because you stop these things doesn't mean it's all just poof going to go away. You've created the inflammation in the body, and now it's everywhere. And of course, now it's inflamed your prostate. So the inflammation has to come down. And we can talk about some herbal remedies that can do this in a matter of weeks if you get rid of all these bad habits. I could keep going on inflammation. There's other things. The next one, of course, the next big one is all the toxins and chemicals that are in our food. So in other words, if you've just been living off of junk food or even just buying food in the supermarket that's not organic, then you've been consuming chemicals. These chemicals are toxic. Of course, now our government's even talking about, I think they've done it, finally banned red dye number 40, which, I was in the 70s as a teenager was reading about red dye number 40, that it was a cancer-causing toxic substance. So it's in Fruit Loops for your kids and any, red drinks and Red Bull, and it's just everywhere. Anything red, that's what they throw in. Of course, in the United States, everywhere else has been banned, and they use other substances. So that's just one example. I think our government has said that, there's over 1,000 toxic substances that are banned in Europe and the rest of the world and freely used in United States. And I think they're going to ban them based on what they've already done in Europe. So those toxins were banned for a reason because, of course, a lot of them are carcinogenic. And will lead to cancer, which is probably one reason we have higher cancer rates than the rest of the world. but it's another subject. But until you get the cancer, you get the inflammation. And why is because these are toxic substances that get in your blood. They get lodged in your joints. They get lodged in your prostate. They get lodged in your brain. They accumulate in your liver. I mean, they just can get everywhere. And particularly heavy metals, we'll say, is another major classification of toxins, which is really hard to get rid of. But we can lump it all in the same category of toxins, and they lead to inflammation. It won't get you when you're 20, when you're 30, and you're 40. You got to accumulate a lot. But again, just because you stop going out to the fast food restaurants and start, eating that in organic food doesn't mean poof, all your toxins are going to go away. It could take you 6 months of taking herbal remedies, clean blood detoxers, liver detoxers, all kinds of things to get these out of your system, depending on where they are. And that's one of the things that the herbs are doing. You could say they're cleaning out the blood and detoxing, if we want to use this term, which is kind of overused, to get the toxins out of the prostate, either get the blood flow there and clean out the blood and get these toxins out of the body. A lot of times people start taking these herbs and they're going, oh my God, my skin's getting better. I'm getting this headache. And that headache is coming, there's just too many toxins being released too much. The herbs are breaking them down, releasing them out of the muscles and the tissue. They're getting in the blood. Then they're hitting the head and the person gets a big headache. So I have to tell them to cut the doses in half. It's working so well. And of course, if you're constipated, just going one time a day, that's going to create more toxins. It's called autotoxicity. So a lot of people don't even care if they're constipated. They think one time a day is just fine. They don't care about that until they get colon cancer. I get at least 1 or 2 cases of colon cancer a month, and every one of them's had a long history of constipation. Again, you could miss a few days, every once in a while, your whole life, and it won't get you to your 40 or 50 till these toxins start accumulating. It's called autotoxicity. You just reabsorb the toxins. So meanwhile, your liver is trying to clean out all the toxins, put them in the bile, flush them out in the duodenum, go through the small intestines, the large intestines, and then they sit in the large intestines because you're not going to the toilet, and then they reabsorb right back in the system again. And the poor liver, it's trying to do its job, but you're not having a sufficient bowel movement. So that's why these treatments have to be holistic. I mean, if a person's not having good bowel movements, I don't care if he's got a prostate problem or not, I've got to give him herbs for the colon. And if he's got nutritional deficiencies and he's, which I can determine just from signs and symptoms, I don't need a lab work. Then, it's a lot of times he's either been eating poorly or he's been eating good and he's got poor digestion. So now I have to give him herbs to fix his digestion too. So don't just think you're going to get a little bag of prostate tea and you're all going to be done. Because if you're constipated, they're creating toxins and you have inflammation all over your body. I may have to give you something even more to get this inflammation down quickly so you don't have to take 50 bags of my tea, even though it's anti-inflammatory. Okay, so we could go on the inflammation, but let's talk about the next major issue with prostate. That's the enlargement. Now, remember, some men can have more enlargement and less inflammation. Some men can have more inflammation and less enlargement. And some cases, of course, can have both. A lot of inflammation in the prostate, inflammation in the whole body, plus enlargement. So how do you know if you're enlarged? Well, that's very easy. You're probably urinating at night 5 to 10 times. And when you go to urinate in the day, the flow's poor because that's the results of the enlargement. You can't urinate. It's usually the first sign that men notice if they're not getting tested regularly. Of course, the doctor does the rubber glove thing, bend over, and then he can feel it to see if it's enlarged. I mean, that's one way to do it. But you can generally tell by your urination. You're having the urination problem, unless you're having a urinary tract infection or bladder infection or something like that. But most of the time for men, if it's been dragging on for years and years and slowly getting worse, and 5 years ago you were just urinating once or twice at night, now you're 5, 6 times a night, now you're 7 or 8 times. You went into the doctor and he stuck his finger up your rectum and he said, oh, you have enlarged prostate. Well, that's it. You have enlarged prostate. We have to determine, we have to look at PSA for other information. We have to determine how inflamed you are in the body. This is a secondary information, but let's talk about the cause of enlarged prostate. The main cause of enlarged prostate is excess animal protein. Now, I'm not saying everybody should just stop all their animal protein. There's plenty of skinny little thin menstruating women out there that need to have a hamburger to, or eat meat just to build up and be strong. Growing children need it, thin people need it. There's a lot of people that need animal protein, and they do very poorly on a vegan and vegetarian diet. Even thin men who are depleted, we have to juggle this a little bit. But if you're overweight and we want to reduce the prostate size down, just like if we want to reduce a tumor, a lump, a growth, anything, or you reduce you down, we can just get rid of all the animal protein, the meat, the chicken, the fish, the cheese, all of these. These are all growing things. They're all, protein. Every cell in your body needs protein to reproduce and make. So if you're already like a little big and you got some, you're a heavy person, you're 20, 30 pounds overweight, why would you be consuming more protein unless you want to be a muscle builder? And they always have problems with their kidneys and gout and be from their high protein consumption. But hey, they look good. That's their main objective, just to have muscles. So they're trying to have a lot of protein because that's their goal, not to be healthy, but have muscles. But that doesn't mean they're healthy, because I get a steady flow of muscle builders in here and keto people with gout, because that comes from excess consumption of animal protein. So the main protein you need to stop, though, is the red meat. That includes lamb. And even though pork is white, it's usually taken off. It's seen even many of religions won't even touch it. And there's obvious reasons once you get down to it and watch what these pigs eat. Bottom feeders like shellfish, they're also scraping around the bottom, eating all the trash. They're also waste eaters, like a pig. He's a waste eater. He eats his own feces. So, it shouldn't be having any pig. No red meat. But now, if you're, like I said, if you're overweight, I just get rid of the fish, the chicken, everything, particularly tofu. And you have to get your protein from the best source, and that is the legumes. 70% of the world gets their protein from legumes. It's only the North Americans, Western Eastern Europeans who are over consuming the meat and animal protein, and that definitely reflects in the amount of cancer we have. Cancer, gallbladder, gout, all of these conditions can come from excess protein. So you're trying to reduce down something, in this case, the prostate. So you don't want to be consuming excess protein. So generally, if you're overweight, the more restrictive I could make it. If you're thin, then okay, we leave you with some fish and some lentils, and just hope try not to let you lose any more weight. I've had patients that were thin, and I put them on got them off all their hamburgers and steak and pork chops and bacon and all that. They felt better, liver felt better, energy was better, and then they just lost too much weight because they weren't overweight in the first place. So then I had to add in some fish and some chicken back in. So they stopped the weight loss. But, since it was usually a cancer case, and I wanted to, swing the ship the other direction. But sometimes I still have to add that animal protein back in for some cases. But like I said, if you're overweight and you want to lose 20, 30 pounds, just take it all out. Eat your beans, eat your vegetables. And no, grains do not increase your inflammation unless you've got the ones that are not organic. And then, they're sprayed with the glyphosate, and now you've got this inflammatory toxin in your bread. So if your bread doesn't say organic on it, it's got glyphosate on it, and glyphosate will just tear up your intestines and lead to all types of intestinal problems. And you'll end up blaming the grain as the problem when it wasn't the grain. It was the humans that blasted it with glyphosate. And even some organic breads have been tested and still have glyphosate in them. So you really have to be careful with all organic foods, particularly once you have cancer. I tell all cancer patients, 0 non-organic food. I think they should just stick a label on all food that's not organic and say full of chemicals and cancer causing. And then the rest don't even need a label. We don't need the organic label. If it's not organic, it should have a sticker that says warning, like a pack of cigarettes. That would be the more, wake up view of the situation. Not organic is some special thing. It's the not organic is some dangerous substance that's going to lead to inflammation and cancer later in your life. So This is all depend on the individual, how we change the diet, and, but, the tomatoes gotta go, the inflammatory things gotta go, the protein's gotta be reduced at least, and, we still can rely on the herbs to a large degree to help with reducing the prostate. So, and the dietary guidelines really need to be individualized. I mean, if it's an advanced condition, I would just do an appointment with me. I would not be trying to just like go online and just, researching or even go by what I said. And, most people online are not treating anybody, never treated anybody. Maybe so best they treated themselves and now they think they're experts. But even with my knowledge and all the hundreds of cases I have, still, if you did an appointment with me, I will individualize the diet. And that's really very important based on every individual. So let's take a look at some of these herbs that can help you. You can see under herbandteas.com, you go to male health, we see prostate, libido, the only two real things that men are concerned about. So we just list those right there. And we have a libido package there. I think we call it the Superman package. And I think we have a prostate package. I just don't see it right now. But we're not going to cover all of these, but I just wanted to show you this category. Let's look at the first product here, the big seller, the one that's selling like hotcakes and has hundreds of testimonials on our website. I think we and eBay and Amazon. It's you can see there's all the testimonials at the bottom. There's 3 pages of them. Let's take a look. My PSA numbers are going down after I had 2 bags, so I'm going to continue. Feels like it helps with my urination. Yeah, this one helps with the urination. Nothing that I've tried has helped me more than this tea. After a few bags, my nighttime urination completely stopped. My frequent urination during the day is much better. Thank you, Herman. Tastes great with some natural honey. It has only been 2 days, so I don't know. Excellent for the prostate, fast shipping, relief from symptoms of swollen prostate. Thank you. And there's more of them here. We got some more here. Okay, so let's go look at this magic formula up here. This is a real champ. I don't think there's a better prostate tea on the planet. And if you go to the site, there's all this information about each of these herbs. But of course, I don't need to look at all that since I wrote it. Let's go look at the product. Now, reduces inflammation of the prostate, increases libido. Now, you notice that this does not say it reduces the size of the prostate. I'm very careful with my words since I only have a little space here. So I'm talking about inflammation and I'm talking about reducing the frequency, which is what the testimonial said. And some people said it helps with the PSA. But you have to, it's not going to reduce the enlarged prostate. But that's where people misunderstand this tea and they think it's a cure-all when they often haven't stopped the coffee, the sugar, and the chocolate, and all of these causes haven't been removed. And I'm going to show you that I have another formula just for reducing the size. This is just inflammation and helping with the urination. And nettle, you can see people selling nettle like it's going to treat your prostate. It's just a diuretic. It's the only reason it's in there. In fact, I could leave it right out and the tea'd probably work even better. It's kind of like a little supportive herb, but don't think it's going to treat it all by itself. And now here's what everybody tries before they do an appointment with me is saw pimento berry. And you can see it's in there. Of course, it's useful. This is the most common herb used in Western herbalism for the prostate. But by itself, it's pretty weak. And a big mistake people make is they buy it in capsule, and it won't work in capsule because it has to be in a tea because you're trying to get it to the prostate. You have to remember when you're using herbal remedies, you've got to get the herbs to the spot. And the easiest place to get the herbs to is your stomach because you drink it, it hits your stomach, and your blood because all these herbs are going into your bloodstream. That's why blood cancers are easier to treat than, say, prostate cancer or even a tumor cancer because you got to get the herbs to the actual area. So certain conditions like bladder conditions, kidney conditions, and prostate conditions, the only way you're going to get the herbs down there is in a tea because if you just throw it in with a bunch of food, it's just going to get mixed up with the food and in the bloodstream, and small amounts will get down there. but we really need, it's not, the herbs are not being delivered through the bloodstream, say like in the case of the thyroid or the liver. It's delivered through the liquids in your body and through the urination as it's urinating out, and that's processed, some of it through the blood as well. So it has to always be in a tea. Never take a prostate formula in a capsule. You're wasting your time. And also, you never can take it with food. You have to take it on empty stomach. And three, you can't take it in a small cup. You have to take it in a lot of water and gulp it down kind of fast because you're trying to flush it down. You're trying to get it to overwhelm your system with the liquid so it then ends up going quickly through your system and you urinate it out and then it works. See, the devil's in the details. So even you buy the right product from me and you take it the wrong way, it may not work. But let's look at this. Supplemental by itself is kind of lame. Nettle is a diuretic, horsetail is a diuretic. So those are kind of like backing it up. Now, it's very interesting here, a few other herbs that most people aren't aware of. Now, Gokshura is actually called tribulus, and this is probably one of the best herbs for the prostate in Ayurvedic medicine. Generally, when I'm making these teas, they're all based on Western formulas, and I try to mix Indian herbs and Western herbs too much because there's this different Western system, there's an Indian system, and you have to be a little advanced to be like mixing them up. But this is basically a Western system when you see the nettle, the supplemental, the horsetail, a little yohimbi, a little licorice, and a little daminia. But in this case, why this formula is so fantastic and why everybody says it's better than anything else they buy, because if you go look online, everybody's just selling the nettle, the supplemento, and horsetail. They don't even put in things like yohimbi bark. But Gokshura is the best herb for your prostate in Ayurveda, Indian system. And then small flowered willow is the best tea used in Eastern Europe in particular, but also parts of Western Europe. So if you're in Switzerland or somewhere, definitely the old Soviet Union, and the Soviets used a lot more herbs than we did. If you, in that period, all the men would take this small flowered willow. That really helped this formula when I added. So of the three, of the Gokshura, the supplemento, and the saw-flowered willow, this may be the best one. And we can't even buy it from our usual suppliers. We have to get it from another source because it comes right from Europe. It's not even considered a North American or Indian herb, and that's where most of our herbs are coming from. So this is why this formula is so effective, is because it's taking three of the best herbs for prostate with three different traditions. Indian tradition, Gokshura, Eastern European, small willowed flower, and Western supplemental. All three of them are in there, and those are the key ingredients. The Daminia, it's actually, a libido herb, so we just throw that in for the men. Yohimbi too is for libido, but it can help with prostate, but they're in there in small amounts. It's just a little gift for the men, but they do have some benefit there for the male reproductive system. And then licorice is just a catalyst making it all work together. So really, from my point of view, it's a very simple formula, but it's really advanced compared to what you're going to see online. And you can read about it more here. Oh, I think we've put in some corn silk too. Some corn silk is on there as well. And that's just a demulcent herb to ease and bring down inflammation. Little coriander is in there as well. See the Daminia is kind of supporting the male libido and overall reproductive and helping with hormonal balance. But yeah, here it says saw-flowered willow, popular in European herbalism. There, it says it right there. And that is true. And Gokshura is a reverent Ayurvedic herb for prostate. And nettle is just an anti-inflammatory diuretic. It's not, and it helps with the swelling. The swelling is going to come down. There's instructions how to take it online. Many details are important there. So this is very important. If you're taking notes and you just want to wing this by yourself and not do an appointment with me, then you really need to be doing 2 bags a month for at least 3 months before you even go get tested. Maybe even 6 months is a better idea. And as you can see, we don't offer this even in tea bags. We want you making the tea, and we do just provide a strainer as an option, not to tea bags, because we want you to boil it, put it in a pot and cook it, make it nice and strong. So tea bags are going to be a waste of time as well. Okay, so now the probably more effective and even more important appointment if I formula that really has more effect on the PSA and is used often in prostate cancer as well with some other herbs, anti cancer herbs. But this one is the one that reduces the size. I put the word slowly. It's slow going. It takes 6 months. Improves the flow, improves the inflammation, but it's way more powerful than the tea. And in fact, if you read the instructions on how to take, it says, buy the tea too, and just put this herb in the tea and drink them both together. And that's how I treat the people. But, of course, these are Indian herbs, so a little bit harder to understand. But, these are herbs. These are formulas within formulas. You can see the one formula, Chandra Prava. Chandra means cooling. This breaks. It's also called a path opener. It helps with the urination. Varuna is a diuretic. Sandalwood is cooling, anti-inflammatory. And then the one formula that's reducing down the size of the prostate is called Kanchnar Guglu. Guglu is a resin, and Kanchnar Guglu is made of 12 herbs. So we've got almost 50 herbs in this formula because there's two formulas, Chandraprabha 36 herbs and Kanchnar Guglu 12 herbs. And those are the main ones. There's the Gokshura, which we talked about earlier. Punarava is another diuretic. It's just instead of nettle. And Varuna is anti-inflammatory diuretic. But this Kanchnar Guglu is really the main herb, and that we use even to reduce down tumors. You can go read about it right there. Kanchnar Guglu, potent Ayurvedic formula, detoxifies the lymph system, promotes prostate health by reducing prostate enlargement. A lot of this information just came right from AI too. I mean, AI seems to know its herbs pretty well, so that's why it's written so well and is known to address BPA, cyst, and tumors. We use it also for tumors and growths, and it's basically reducing down the size. So that's really the key formula in there. So there's two formulas backed up by some other herbs. So this is way more powerful than the tea. And unfortunately, a lot of people just buy the tea because they like teas, but they don't understand these herbs. But I do put a little graphic right here, traditional Ayurvedic formula used by Ayurvedic doctors worldwide, I should say, developed centuries ago, more effective than a tea. So I did put that in there to try to educate people. And we do sell a lot. And there's the prostate bundle where you're getting both together. Okay. So other things we can add and to help out is a Shilajit. I hope many people have heard about Shilajit. We talks about it. It's a dark, sticky substance and commonly used in many Ayurvedic formulas. And it means the destroyer of weakness, and it brings strength to the whole body. Yeah, definitely if you're fatigued, you're going to get this, but it helps with prostate, helps with clearing the urination. And, it's also known just for not just fatigue, but heart health, bone density, anemia, dementia, and low male libido. It's just a real rejuvenator. I've been taking it for 30 years. And one reason people call me Superman, because my pure Shilajit, which I'm bringing from the Himalayas, I take about a half a teaspoon every day. And I give it out to a lot of men with a lot of issues and women as well, but prostate is one. And I have a formula here called Male Reproductive Tonic, and it has Shilajit in it. So if you're a married man, this may be a better choice for you, particularly if you're thin and you're depleted and you're having a little trouble in bed. This one is a way I can keep you happy and get some Shilajit in you. And of course, these are all Ayurvedic herbs, no stimulating herbs like ginseng. By the way, this is a non-stimulating formula. See, it says non-stimulating, can take at night, won't have a sleeping problem, can use long-term. Basically good for any sexually active man, and helping the reproductive system. I mean, there's some anti-inflammatory herbs in here, so it's sure not going to hurt the prostate. And of course, it has the Shilajit. So sometimes I give this out to the men as a kind of secondary treatment. But you do have to remember that I will always treat holistically. And if you have poor digestion, you'll have herbs for the digestion. And, if you have toxins in the system, you're going to have herbs for toxins. And of course, if you have joint pain, inflammatory condition, I will also give you herbs to bring down the inflammation, so the first signs a lot of people see when they start this treatment, I mean, it can take 6 months to a year to reduce down the size of that prostate. But a lot of people will say, hey, the urination at night's already reduced from 7 times to 5 times to 3 times. They can see that coming down right away. So that's doesn't mean you're out of the woods, Doesn't mean that prostate's not still enlarged, but at least you're flowing through there and you're not, you sleep, you're and it's starting to clear or at least starting to reduce down in size. Of course, the only way to really know is stop the herbs for a while and then see what happens to your urination. And if you're still, it's better than before, then this is the indicator that the prostate size has reduced. You have to remember in the ancient days, they didn't have CT scans. They had to go on signs and symptoms like this. And since all my patients are on Zoom and I'm not a medical doctor, I have to rely also on these signs and symptoms to see the progress of my patients. The other sign that they notice, particularly if they had muscle pain, joint pain, and intestinal pain, is all this pain and inflammation can be taken care of in like just in a month. I mean, by taking the anti-inflammatories and stopping all their things that were creating the inflammation. But it doesn't mean you're out of the woods, but you get that inflammation down, keep it down, stay on the diet, keep going with the herbs, particularly the Ayurveda formula to reduce the size of the prostate. And if you're overweight, then that weight's got to keep coming down every single month too. And then you just got to slug it out for, up to 1 year. People ask me, can I treat prostate? And I said, oh, I've treated many cases. The real question isn't me, sir. The question is whether you're going to stick it out for a year and keep going. How many people make it? How many men make it to the finish line? I would say less than half, maybe as low as 30%. Even though I'll text and email you, my staff will contact you and push you to do follow-ups. Obviously, if you don't reply and tell us to buzz off, then we stop. And a lot of these people will come back 1 or 2 years later when the whole condition got worse and get serious the second round. Again, most men just wait until it gets bad. They have a little enlargement down there. They can't ride their bike anymore. So, they just keep on going, but it just doesn't get better all by itself. It just keeps rolling along, particularly if you haven't removed those causes that are making it enlarge. You're still having your coffee and your steak, then you're still contributing to the inflammation and the enlargement, and it's just going to progressively get worse. And I don't know how many other options you have once it becomes advanced, but most of my patients, they come at an advanced stage. And of course, the PSA is high. This is even more of a serious case. And if it's just a little high, then probably will come back down in range within 6 months to 1 year. If you're consistent with the diet and you're consistent with the herbs. Now, since I've been in practice over a couple decades, I've had people I treated more than 10 years ago, got better, changed their life, changed the diet, then completely forgot everything about me, lost my phone number, everything, went back to the eating the meat and the alcohol and all the bad habits again, and the prostate issue came right back. Just like any condition in life, once you've had it once, you're very susceptible to have it a second time. So, you really have to stick it out to the finish line, and it's going to be 6 months to 1 year down the road, depending on how advanced your condition is. And everybody's different. In this particular case, if it's advanced, I just highly recommend you do an appointment. Even though I try to tell you everything I can to help you, it's very tricky to do this on your own. And even if you're able to buy my products online, I can customize these products, and I have other products I don't even advertise. So better to do an appointment. Okay, I hope this helped you. At least there is a cure out there. If you've got the motivation and self-discipline to go to the finish line, then this may be a good path for you. I wish you all the best of health and happiness. And of course, I wish all the men no prostate problems and good libido. Thank you very much, gentlemen and supportive ladies.